Alright, so now let's talk about number 4, the uses and applications of tables. Tables are used to show the two categories that data belong to, and for further calculations. The best way to understand tables is to see an example. So let's look at a simple example of monthly budget. This is, of course, the table title. And this table will have just a very, very simple 3 columns and 3 rows. In the top row, we have the title of the data. Let's say, for example, food and clothing. And in the first column, we'll have the title column for the month of October and the month of November. Let's say that in the first cell here, these are called cells or boxes, we have $250 for food. For clothing, let's say we have $150. Let's say for food we have $200 in the month of November, and we have an equal $200 for clothing. Now, again, tables are used to show the two categories that data belong to. So for example, we can see that $250 belongs to the category of food and the category of October, or the month of October. $200 belongs to clothing and November, as well as for food and November, because both are $200. $150 belongs to October and for clothing. However, even more important than just identifying and comparing the differences of individual data in these boxes or in these cells, what we can do with this table now is we can make some simple calculations by adding together rows or by adding together columns. And again, on the IELTS, when you get a table, if you want to get a higher score on your paragraph, it is important to look at adding together the rows and columns, and then making comparisons between them using compare and contrast vocabulary. Again, and usually the numbers that you will see in the tables on the IELTS exam are fairly simple numbers. You don't need to write an exact number. You don't have enough time to maybe do exact math. But if you have an approximate number or an about number, that's absolutely okay. Just make sure you use those words when you describe the information. So I'll give you an example of that by summing or by adding together the second column. Pay attention, this is the first column. This is the second column. So by adding together the second column, we learn that in these 2 months, $450 was spent on food. In contrast, by adding together the third column, we learn that $350 was spent on clothing. Therefore, we can state or say that food for these 2 months was more expensive than clothing by about $100. So this is by adding together the columns. Now, if we add together the rows, we find out a little bit different information. So by adding together the second row, again, pay attention, the first row is the title row. So by adding together the second row, we learn that $400 was spent from the budget in the month of October on both food and clothing combined. By looking at the third row, we learn that $400 was spent on food and clothing combined in the month of November. Therefore, we can state that even though the numbers are different, the budget expense for these 2 months was equal or the same at $400. So I'm just going to put an example sentence up here for you on the left-hand side. By adding, or we can also say summing, to use some nice synonyms or paraphrasing. By summing the second column we learn that $450 was spent on food in these 2 months. This is a standard sentence that can be used when describing a table for task 1. So again, by adding or summing the second column, we learn that $450 was spent on food in these 2 months, or October and November. Again, these comparisons make the table much more interesting and much better described. So tables are used to show the 2 categories that data belong to, and very importantly, for further calculations. By simply comparing the data with each other, it may be difficult or very weak to write 150 words, but by doing further calculations, the information becomes much more interesting and will likely get a better score or a better grade. So remember to show 2 categories that data belong to, and for further calculations. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the 5th type of graphic or representation that a test taker might see on the IELTS, which will be flowcharts.